Today, we have a special treat for all the dog lovers out there. Get ready to dive into the world of innovative dog grooming and wellness with the trailblazing founder of Scenthound.
Welcome to Fordify Live with your host, Ford Saeks.
Well, Tim, thank you for joining us today. I have a dog. It might bark during this episode. I have a Labradoodle. I've been a big dog lover all my life. And so for those listeners out there, we are live right now on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and a few other places. And this episode is also the audio for the Business Growth Show podcast on your favorite streaming platform. So, Tim, welcome to Fordify Live.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
So what is this Scenthound? Like, just tell our listeners and viewers, what is this business? Because I've heard of dog grooming before, but what makes what you're doing different? Kind of tell me your story.
Yeah, so Scenthound really is routine hygiene and wellness care so that dogs can live longer, happier lives. And so Scent is actually an acronym. It stands for skin, coat, ears, nails, teeth, which are the 5 core areas all dogs need care. And we've really set out to create a way that's fast, easy, and affordable for dog parents to be great dog parents, to help their dogs live happier, healthier lives.
Yeah, because when I take my dog in to, the local pet franchise, which they will groom her, but a lot of times they don't cut the nails, or they don't do the other things at all. In fact, if they do, they haven't ever upsold it or tried to tell me about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I spent a decade in the grooming business. Really, the origin story started with the mobile grooming business and got a fleet of trucks and built a mobile grooming business. And then as I really spent time in that industry and really deeply learning about kind of what dog parents want and what the needs were out there, there was a series of aha moments where I realized, grooming is really about haircuts. And so you're competing with everyone else in this red ocean about who can give the best haircut. But all dogs need care. And if you looked at the top 10 breeds owned in the US, actually only one of those dogs needs a haircut. So you got 9 other dogs in the top 10 breeds owned in the US that aren't getting the regular care they need. And so we really set out kind of to solve that problem, to make it fast, easy, and affordable for all dog parents to get the regular routine care they need around health and wellness. Now, we do haircuts also, but we're not stylists. We're not competing with the other groomers for the kind of the best breed style haircut. We really focus on that routine hygiene and wellness care so that your dog can live longer, happier lives.
And where can people find it? Where are the locations at right now, and what are your growth plans?
Yeah, so we franchised our very first location in December of 2020, and we're now working on opening our 85th location this week. So we're in 23 states, I think maybe 24 coming up soon. And so we're in the Southeast quite a bit, but all the way in California, Nevada, Texas, and a lot of other states on that side. So just check us out at scenthound.com and you can find the location near you.
And so when because you've reached the magic number, right? In franchising, for those of you watching, we have C-level professionals, executives, business owners, and I do a lot in franchising. So I love to get franchise owners and CEOs on this show, because we're all entrepreneurs at some level, and we can all learn, how do we improve the customer experience? How do we get more customers? So that's why we're having this conversation today. So Tim, you've reached a magic number with over 50, right? So there's like 25, then 50, then 75, and then 100 is like this golden number. And then of course, there's franchise brands that go up to thousands. I'm flying on a plane to go speak at a franchise group. There'll be 2,000 people there, right? It just depends on the size of the conference. But here's the question. So is this a model where an existing mobile dog groomer would then add your franchise to them, or are they independent just for your brand?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of learning, and having been in this industry now almost 20 years, we've had a lot of aha moments, and there's a lot of pillars to creating scalability that have really gotten to the place where we're at right now. One of the big aha moments we had was the only way to scale a grooming business is get rid of the groomer.
Right.
And that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but that was one of the biggest barriers to actually us scaling, which is, there's only so many groomers out there. There's no licensing anywhere in the nation. So you've got a wide range of skill and competency when you go out there to hire a groomer. And grooming's really, a lot of it's about the styling, right? It's really artistry. And so scaling artistry is really a challenge. And I honestly don't think you can do it.
Right.
And so we actually said, okay, how do we create scalability? And one of those things was staffing and that professional technician. And so what we ultimately did is we actually built all of the training in-house. So we now hire someone we call a scent tech, and they really start bathing. And then we built a really robust curriculum in-house that moves them from scent tech to supervisor to assistant trimmer to trimmer. We don't even use the word groomer anymore. Then to assistant manager and manager. So we create this career path. So we go out and find the people that have the right set of skills, competencies, attitude, and then we train all of the skills. So hire for attitude, train for skills in-house.
Yeah, that's something I say a lot too.
Yeah, that's been one of our big innovations. The other big innovation is we don't do styling. If someone comes into our place and says, hey, I want my dog to look like this picture of this dog in the magazine, our response is, that's amazing. There's a groomer down the road. They're going to take great care of you. We're about health. We're not about haircuts. So we will do a haircut, but it's going to be one length all over, and that's it. So we're not stylists. We're really about health and wellness. And so we really focus on making sure that your dog has the preventive routine care they need to stay healthy and actually live longer. And so that's really where our focus is, and on the health. So that's been a big innovation for us around grooming, where we now make trimmers. And I'll say one final thing. When you're running our model correctly, at the end of a year, you'll have up to 7 trimmers, which is too many for a location. So the biggest bottleneck in the industry is now our biggest competitive advantage. And you need to open up your second location because that trimmer wants to be promoted to assistant manager, and your assistant manager wants to be promoted to manager, and so on and so forth.
Well, I think there's a lot of lessons in what you said. First, I always, in every keynote, whenever I talk about staffing, because that's one of the biggest challenges anybody's having right now, is how to attract and engage and retain top talent. And I always say, you can hire for attitude, train for skills, because if you hire someone who's skilled but has a bad attitude, you're going to have a problem. But as long as, obviously they need core competencies, of course, but attitude goes a long way, especially if they're coachable. The other lesson I think I want to take away for the listeners is the fact of diversification versus diversification. You were very clear, Tim, on knowing what you were and what you aren't. So you weren't trying to be everything to everybody. I think a lot of entrepreneurs and even franchise systems, the reason franchising works is because the franchisor has defined the system, and successful franchisees follow those systems. The ones that are successful follow the systems. They take personal accountability for their own results. They invest in the tools and the training, but they really go out and build their local trade area domination. And so they don't try to do everything. So I think that's really essential. That's probably why you've been able to grow so fast, is, staying in your lane. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. And I'm sure that's a challenge, because a lot of franchisees come into systems. Oh yeah, I'm going to follow the system. And then they try to reinvent the wheel. So that compliance. So what do you do? How do you communicate compliance throughout your family of franchisees?
Yeah, I think the first thing to really think about in creating scalability or a model that's easy to follow is simplicity. And it's really simplicity on the other side of complexity. And look, I love to make things complex. And you have to go through that complexity to ultimately say, okay, where's the signal and the noise? What's the core things that drive this? What can we be the best in the world at? And let's ignore the other stuff, right? So you've got to have that simplicity first before you can say, follow my recipe. And then the second thing I would say about that is, once you've achieved that, the analogy I love to use is, we spent over a decade building an amazing recipe for an amazing cake. We want you to follow that recipe to the T. We want you to bake the cake. We want you to taste the cake before you're allowed to make any suggestions on how to change that recipe for the cake. And look, there's a natural tendency from everybody, is like, they look at a recipe and like, oh my God, this could use more sugar. And they want to monkey with it out of the beginning. But what they're forgetting, and I think what you're really buying with the franchise, is the ability to skip the 10 years I went through tinkering with this recipe so that you don't have to do it, bumping into every corner, screwing everything up. Like, I did all of that so you can avoid that. And so some people just don't realize kind of the amount of energy and effort that went into making that possible, so that they could skip that whole stage and then really execute to create a profitable, healthy business.
So that's just so true. I mean, and I interview a lot of CEOs, and some of my interviews are like, gosh, I wonder how they're going to be successful. But you really have that solid foundation. Where do you feel? What did you do before you started the franchise system? You were a dog groomer. You had mobile dog grooming business, but is that where you started? And was that a franchise? And then you moved in. You moved from a franchisee.
So I'll start way in the beginning, which is my wife and I were living in the Washington, D.C. area. We had just gotten married. And she said, I would love to get a dog. And actually, it started before that. We got a plant and that lived. So then we're like, okay, we can maybe move to a dog. I was resistant, actually. I had a dog growing up, but I was resistant. I was like, look, it's gonna hurt our freedom. We want to go out after work. We want to hang with friends. Anyhow, long story short, she won. We got the dog. And so I started researching how to raise a puppy and stuff. And I was reading this really cool book on the art of raising a puppy. And it said, all dogs are pack animals, and you have to establish yourself as the leader. And one way to establish yourself as a leader is go out to a big, wide open area, take your puppy, put them on the ground, no leash, and walk away from them. And that dog will see you as the leader and follow you. And so I did that. I was walking and I looked and it was right on my heel. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. There was something evolutionary about it. There was this cool bond. And I just fell in love ever since then, right? It was such a cool thing. At the same time, I was really like, we were talking about a life by intention, a life by design, and a company I was working for in the DC area was going through a merger. And so I said, honey, I've always wanted to take this entrepreneurial leap. I fell in love with this dog. I was in what was called the car sharing business at the time. So I kind of understood, the unit economics by kind of individual vehicles. I said, right. Mobile grooming is perfect. Everything's at home services. And so we moved to Jupiter, Florida for a quality of life change. I went to grooming school to understand it. I got my first truck. I hired my first groomer, and we were off to the races. And it was probably 3-4 months in, I was like, oh shit, what have I done? Right. Like I moved my family here. This business isn't scalable. I can't find staff. And that really started us on this path of like, okay, I burned the boats. I committed. We're down here. I got to figure this out. I can either go back and get a job and tuck my tail between my legs, or I can figure this out. And so I systematically started to figure out like, okay, what's the barrier? It's around staffing. And one of the things I did is the grooming school I went to, I said, can I create a partnership with you? I'm going to hire people that I like. Can I put them in school? I'll pay their tuition. They're going to go to school 4 days a week. They're going to be 1 day in the week with us in the van. And then when they graduate, they're going to do an earn out of their tuition over the next year. They're just going to take a couple % from their pay and it'll pay back. And so we built the mobile grooming business that way, but it wasn't scalable. It was never going to get to a large size, but at least it was paying my bills. Right. And so that's really where we started the journey. And then, so I continued to try to solve problems. We opened up grooming salons. That's when I had the aha moment about wellness. We really put in our 10,000 hours and started to really understand things. And then ultimately leading to this franchise business, which, we're really growing very rapidly, but people don't see the iceberg under the water, which is, the 10 to 15 years of pain and suffering and figuring things out to create this overnight success, right?
I totally understand that. As a keynote speaker, I speak at a lot of conferences, and you and I met in person at the International Franchise Association, just a couple of weeks ago. And, a lot of my speaker buddies always say, well, why are you exhibiting at IFA? I mean, you speak in manufacturing and real estate and insurance and all these other companies. And I'm like, well, I want to really have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in an industry, because the more you learn, and when people invest in my services, they're not investing for that 45-minute or 60-minute keynote. They're investing for the insights of 34 years in franchising.
Yes.
So that's really the key. And I think that that's something that you've really done well communicating to your family of franchisees. What is the challenge? What is, if you had to say, what is one of the top 3 challenges that you're facing in your franchise business now? It could be internal or external. I'm just curious, what's a challenge? It doesn't mean you're not already solving it, but what is a major challenge that you're facing?
Yeah. So one of the big challenges, so I think about the entrepreneurial journey as sections of a trail. So, each section of that journey as your business grows requires different needs. Yep. And so in the beginning, the way I really saw us in the franchising business was like a jazz band. And if you think about a jazz band, I'm on the trumpet, I'll riff a little bit, and then the drummer picks up on it and they riff, and then, the bass player gets going, and then you got this really great music going. And we've been amazing at that the first couple of years of scaling the franchising business. But the reality is, as you get to the next section of the trail, you get over 50, you get over 100.
Right. That's where it gets complicated around where you're at right now is where that's the divergent of the systems and the processes and the communication. Correct. That's the system.
So complexity rises, and now we're in the transition phase of becoming a marching band. And so jazz band works at that level, but it doesn't work. Like, I need everyone to have a sheet of music. They know exactly what their part is, what steps they're taking, how to coordinate those steps. And so we're doing a lot of process documentation. Everyone owns a process. Every process has a name. Every process has a lead indicator. Every process has a lag indicator. We have a meeting rhythm. We have organization around all the stuff that we're doing. And so that's part of our challenge right now, is as that team takes that journey, some people have the mental flexibility to really, or some people just don't have the desire to kind of, right. I don't want to be in a marching band. Jazz band's where it's at, right? And so, really leading the organization through that transition in a way that keeps continuity, but also starts to put the right infrastructure in place so that we can lead all of the franchisees in the best possible way.
Where do you see the future of your business going? I mean, do you feel like, is there a lot of competition in what you're doing now? Me on the outside, when I first was doing, looking in the green room and doing research before this episode, I'm like, this is such a cool idea. And, my dog Luna, who's laying on somewhere on the floor right next to me, I don't know where she's at right now. But she's the power of positivity is what we call her.
Yes.
But, I haven't seen a lot of competition. Is this something where you're starting to now see groomers try to do what you do?
Yeah, so this is really, and if you've heard of the red ocean, blue ocean strategy,
yes.
This is a classic blue ocean strategy. So we've really identified a marketplace where there really isn't any players. And the way I think about what we're doing right now, and one of the reasons we decided to franchise, is we're creating a category.
Yes.
And so what are the features of category creation? How do you maintain your lead in that category? And franchising is a way, honestly, to scale really rapidly. It's a way to help people take that entrepreneurial journey. It's a way to de-risk customer engagement, because an owner is on the ground level actually dealing with those customers and really caring for those customers. And so I think we really are category creators. Now, copycats are going to come along. I think if it wasn't a good idea, we wouldn't get copied. But I really think that's positive, because as you're creating a category, we need more people out there educating, the labs and the boxers and the Frenchies that, your dog does need regular care. And that'll help all of us as we move into the future. I think the second part, and that's really important in category creation and something we think a lot about, is what's the defensive moat we're building around our business.
Right.
And so if you think about our business, we're actually capturing tremendous amounts of health data: skin, coat, ears, nails, teeth, glands. We do a whole bunch of stuff in the background that collects health data. We're already getting to that place where we're having such a large amount of data that we can start to use metadata to start to see trends. So we're really in a proactive business right now. So think about a vet. A vet's really reactive in a lot of ways because, hey, I have a problem. I need to go see the vet and I need to solve that. We're routine, we're preventive. So now we're in the proactive business. Because we're evaluating your dog, we're actually identifying problems in advance. And then you can start to use the data to get to a place where I think the holy grail is, which is predictive. So if I can get to predictive healthcare and hyper-personalize and curate solutions because I know your dog better than you do, and I actually know what's coming for your dog when you don't know when it's coming, I think that's really where we're going to stay ahead of the group and continue to outcompete people who are here. And we just got a head start on that because we've got such large volumes of data coming in.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of lessons here. I hope our viewers and listeners are really, because you can apply what we're talking about to so many businesses. It's the philosophy
Absolutely.
That's making you successful, Tim. Yes, it's the product, and yes, you have good product, but it's your leadership and your vision and your understanding of how to grow a business and the phases that they go through. And again, if you're interested in learning more about this, it's Tim Vogel, Vogel. Connect with him on LinkedIn, but he's the founder and CEO of Scenthound, and it's just spelled like it sounds, Scenthound. com. I just looked down to make sure. I have my main camera here and my notes over here. I want to make sure I don't mess up the name. But so in the future, I think I see tremendous growth. I mean, obviously I'm a dog lover, so I love it. What has been a blind side that you didn't see coming? Has there been something that you just was like, you had it? So the reason I'm asking this is I've grown several businesses up. I've had 17 businesses of my own. I've invented products. I've sold products and services through every channel of distribution, from manufacturing to distributor networks to mass merchants to specialty catalogs, every chain stores. I've done all the different levels, which then led into this business, right? Because that was my foundation, and now I'm doing this. And along the way, there's been times where I was really confident and I really thought I knew what was happening. Then all of a sudden I got blindsided. And I'm just curious if there's been a blindside that you've seen.
Yeah, I think there's endless learning, and I'm learning every single week. And, you don't know what you don't know until you get into that situation. But I think the thing that for me, getting into this level of scale that's been really kind of new to me is that I learned that things that I was really good at, I took for granted. And I needed to create process and documentation around some stuff that I thought was kind of tacit or understood. So a perfect example of that would be managing high-performing teams. So I'm just really good at that. I've got a natural leadership ability. We ran daily huddles and stuff, but I actually didn't reverse engineer what leading high-performing teams looks like, especially at an entry-level employee level. So how do you find the right people? How do you source them? How do you communicate? How do you create excitement? How do you create a culture? And how do you all the things that are part of that, where we started getting franchisees that were really struggling with their team. And so I was like, well, why is that not working? It's so obvious to me, right? And then I realized, well, wait a minute, I'm just really good at that, and I took it for granted. So I needed to go back and reverse engineer that. And so I think something that we've been doing that is really powerful is we really think of the three main constituents we have. Number one, the dog parent. We sat down and mapped out the entire dog parent journey and experience with us, each moment of truth. What are the tools? What are the KPIs? What is the experience they should have? And then all of the training associated with that. So really getting that dog parent experience right. The next one, we're really mapping the employee journey. How do you find them? What kind of attitude should they have? What level of empathy? What are the skills? How do you onboard them correctly? How do you make that journey, that career path journey for them sticky and engaging? And then the third one is the franchisee journey. Like, have the franchisee have the ability to zoom out and say, here's the road I'm going to be traveling. And by the way, this moment right here, the thing I'm working on, is the only thing that matters right now. So I know what's next, but I'm not going to go focus on that. I'm going to do this thing. And so the way we always relate that is a really great employee experience creates a really great customer experience, which really creates a healthy business. And so if we can think about those three constituents and really map it out in detail, what that experience should be like, look like, what are the key features of that? What are the tools? What are the KPIs? Then we can get really clear on how to do the execute on the business in the best way. So if I think about what I didn't know, is there's layers of the onion that you start to learn as the business gets bigger, because you need to now understand the next level of complexity or the next lesson that's underneath there. And so we're continuing to peel layers back. I'm sure there's infinite number of layers for us to still learn, and there's stuff I'm not talking about because I don't even know it yet, but there's more there, I'm sure.
Yeah, and when in business, what I found in my own businesses and then with the franchise groups I work with is that people are really good at one of three things. They're delivering the product or service, marketing or sales, or leading and managing. And, they're never really good at all three. They're always good at usually two of them. And so, in every business, every franchisee, they'll come into a system like you, because of the language patterns, I can tell the personal growth and development you've done in leadership. I recognize a lot of the things. And so I can say, okay, he's obviously a continual learner focused on, leading a successful team. You really do intrinsically understand it from a deep, deep level. And that's what's so important from a leadership perspective, to be able to do that. I'm going to go ahead and if I can hit the right camera here on my system. Luna. Oh, he's falling off the chair. Okay. So this is live, everybody. So we got to do what we can do here. So there's Luna. She wanted to come on and say hi to everybody because she's sitting up here. she's probably saying, "Hey, I need to go outside." So that's my Labradoodle Luna. We'll put her back, go back to the camera there. So she just wanted to come on and say hi since she heard a dog person.
It.
So
Luna's beautiful, and I have a
yes,
golden doodle, so we're in that same range. They're amazing dogs.
Well, any final thoughts that you want to leave with our listeners, and then we'll do the show and then stick around at the end. Any final thoughts you want to leave? Obviously, if you're interested in learning more about Scenthound, go to scenthound.com. This is not a pitch for a franchise. This is for educational and informational purposes only. But I mean, that's a great business. What's an average, if you can share it? If you can't, just say no, Ford. That's what's an average investment for someone who's interested in this business with you?
Yeah, well, I would be very careful with numbers because in franchising, but I would say our new FDD is coming out in the next month and a half. We have a robust item 19, and the item 19 really is where you can see the financials of all of our franchisees.
Wow,
and
that's
so
amazing.
If you're interested in exploring this opportunity, you'll see all that, and you'll be able to say kind of who's performing well, who's not performing well, what does middle of the pack look like, what kind of membership volume do I need? What is ticket value? What is the growth trajectory, so that you can really get your arms around and build your own performance and how you think you'll perform as a franchisee based on your skill set. That's great. And that's part of that discovery process, or we call it recruiting process for franchisees. You get in a 10-year relationship. We need to make sure we de-risk it for you and we de-risk it for us. And so we take a really kind of recruiting kind of approach to it to make sure that it's a good fit, because if you're going to be in business with someone for 10 years, you want to get it right for both sides.
That is so true. It's the same adage of hire slow and fire fast. So
yep.
All right, well, great. Well, that's the end of this episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Fordify Live, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Fordify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.